Hello and welcome to this week's PS4 O'Clock, where I'll be talking to Phil Ivanuik about the recent PS4 pre-order ransom scandal, new information on a PS4 app for PS Vita, and the latest details on the PS4 DualShock controller. Hello everyone, it is Leon here with this week's PS4 O'Clock, and I am joined by Phil.
Hello.
We've got a few things to go through today, just rounding up the PlayStation kind of 4 world, and the first thing is a very interesting story developing with Simply Games, which is an online retailer that has effectively held its PS4 pre-orders to ransom by changing the options that are available.
Yeah, it's made them all much more expensive.
Yes.
Basically, all the pre-orders that people had already bought for $349.99. Were there even some that were cheaper?
No, I think it's $349.
That was a cheaper one. They're now at least 70 quid more expensive.
Well, it's interesting, yes, because it looks like they've been sort of moving stuff around. I mean, what happened was that a guy called Mr. CK posted on the PlayStation EU forums, and he said, "So I have just lost my release day guaranteed PS4 order because Simply Games sent me an email to change my pre-order to one of Sony's apparent bundles. Not one is the same as any of the Sony bundles, and the prices are ridiculous. I could no longer order the console at the regular price, so I was forced to cancel." And yeah, so what happened basically was they sent an email out going, "We need you to update your order. This only affects the choice within your order. You must make a new console choice, but all of the new choices were more expensive." And apparently, originally, we have a couple of people posted on the story I put up. So DVD Chaz and Woodinator both pointed out that the original minimum bundle price that was then offered was a £414 bundle, which was an extra controller and an unofficial USB cable.
Right.
So that implied that it wasn't a Sony-driven thing, because obviously Sony wouldn't give out non-Sony stuff.
Exactly.
And since the story kicked off, they Simply Games changed things to offer a £399 bundle. £399 bundle, which was Killzone or Watch Dogs. So they almost immediately kind of changed what was available, but still offering essentially a £70 increase in price in order to get your guaranteed release day PS4.
And this all came about, didn't it, because the supplier from Sony to independent outlets in the UK had sort of overestimated how many of the non-bundled console units were going to be put into stores. I
think what it was, I should just say first of all, this doesn't look like it's got anything to do with Sony. Sony made a statement saying, "We value our consumers and the offer the bundles precisely to give them the choice and value. The key word there is choice. We have not, nor would we ever force people to buy one of these instead." So Sony have distanced themselves, but what has apparently come out is that Centresoft handle Sony's UK distribution to sort of the smaller stores. So if it's Amazon, if it's Game, if it's the larger places like that, Sony deal with them directly.
Yeah.
Centresoft are like a sort of a middle management sort of wholesaler, and they deal with Shop2, Simply Games, apparently supermarkets as well. This came out through Pixel Enemy, website, and they had a source who say Centresoft, who handle the UK distribution of Sony products, mainly independent names as Shop2, Simply Game, as I've said, called their retailers and stated that the allocation of confirmed pre-orders for the independent retailers were now comprised of 50% Solus machines and 50% bundles. Now, a Solus machine is basically the machine on its own.
Just the console, right?
And I'm guessing that none of the retailers were anticipating a 50-50 split. So they probably sold a lot of pre-orders based on the Solus single machine. Suddenly, they simply haven't got that made available. So it looks like it's been forced by this kind of middle ground retailer. But something that's also happened since all this broke is that trading standards have got involved. In a story on CVG, they've basically said this appears to be profiteering. The seller is raising the price, hoping people either drop out or pay more. If they drop out, the seller can resale at a higher price. And they've been talking about swift injunctive action is needed.
Yeah.
So
I'm not surprised. I mean, it's awful. I've never seen anything like it in this or the last generation. I mean, it really is holding them to ransom. I
mean, it's at the moment it does seem very unclear as who's to sort of blame. I mean, Simply Games director, a guy called Neil Musprat, came out on MCV and CVG and said that it wasn't. Most people weren't that bothered, and commenters were blowing it out of proportion. And he also said they would not be changing their orders, which, according to people that have got in contact with us, they have changed their orders. They've reinstated lower price bundles. But trading standards, I mean, if they say it's illegal, they're sort of they literally are the law.
Yeah, you take them on their word.
So it'll be interesting to see how that develops and what will happen because if it is a case that there simply aren't enough Solus bundles, then people are going to lose their day one allocation.
I mean, I don't think it's, at least the genesis of the situation isn't Simply Games' fault. If they were undersold, they didn't get the number of Solus packages that they thought they were going to get, then I can understand them being in an awkward position. But this is no way to go about it. I mean, they haven't been as transparent as they're claiming, have they? They've changed prices on the bundles and things, and the third party cables and things, and the sort of bundles that they've put together themselves. Or whiffs of something slightly awry.
There is some evidence as well that has come from Centresoft again. So this source from Pixel Enemy said that if customers chose not to have the Killzone pack, would they be entitled to a Solus machine that was originally allocated? The retailers were told no. Other retailers were informed they were to take additional DualShocks for a high attach rate, meaning forced bundles being offered by the likes of Simply Games and whoever else is being told this. So it might not be the retailers to blame, and while the sort of the wholesalers, Centresoft, might be kind of forcing the hand, again, it might be something to do with the sheer physical numbers. It'll be interesting. We'll have to wait and see, basically. I don't want to sort of apportion any blame until somebody official has sort of looked into it and we found out what's going on.
Yeah, doesn't look good, but hopefully a positive conclusion to it in the end.
And we'll keep you informed as to what's happening with that. Okay, well, moving on to some slightly brighter news. Shuhei Yoshida has come out and said that there will be a PS4 Link app coming to PS Vita with the next firmware update. He was asked on Twitter if the Vita would get a version of the PlayStation app from someone who said, "I'm interested in the second screen." This is a guy called OS and Ravens Fan 1 on Twitter. It said, "I'm interested in the second screen stuff, but I don't have iOS or Android devices." And Shuhei Yoshida said, "We'll add PS4 Link app to PS Vita PS Vita with the next update."
Which sounds like a bespoke version of the app rather than just the same app on a different console. Because I guess there are other things to take. I mean, maybe the dual touchscreens will come into play somehow.
I think it's more to do with. I mean, you wrote the story on the PlayStation 4 app?
Yeah, originally. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, if it's so. The functionality that brings in terms of connecting to your PlayStation profile, being able to message your friends, being able to download things remotely, and also for developers to be able to use that as a kind of gateway to a second screen without creating bespoke software.
Yeah.
People have been wondering if the second screen stuff will be coming to Vita, and maybe this hints at that it will, because if the Vita is simply containing a version of the app, then all that functionality will be present.
Yeah. And I mean, the word link sort of suggests that it will be like that anyway, doesn't it? So good news for Vita.
And then lastly, just to finish up, we've got another tweet from Shuhei, who seems to be giving it all the way on Twitter at the moment, which is that the PS4 DualShock controller will be PC compatible basically from launch.
Which is very good news, actually.
Yes, it is. I mean, it doesn't sound like a big deal initially when you think sort of, well, I'm going to be playing PS4 with it anyway, but the Xbox controller initially was the sort of the de facto, the controller of choice for PC and gaming, because it was just, you just plugged it in and you played.
Absolutely.
And it gave it sort of a presence, and it gave it sort of use beyond the PS4. It'll be interesting to see now what happens if PS4's controller takes that place and it becomes the sort of the controller you see everywhere. And it might explain as well why a lot of Xbox One builds were being played with PS4 pads.
I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, because I've seen a few people saying they journalists and gamers going to demos, playing a PC tower of a next gen game with a PlayStation pad and Xbox buttons on the screen.
Wow, Microsoft would hate that. We should say that. So it's just the sticks and the buttons. The touchpad obviously isn't going to be compatible with PC, at least initially. Well, I don't know what sort of coding could be implemented to make that work down the road, maybe, but initially anyway.
Yeah. I mean, so Shuhei Yoshida said when he was asked, the question he was asked was, any chance you guys release a driver to use DualShock 4 with Windows or something? And he said, analog sticks and buttons will work just fine. And then someone else asked, so it'll have compatibility by default? And he went for basic functions, yes. So, yeah, essentially the triggers and the buttons and the sticks, everything you need to play a game will work. I'm guessing, obviously, motion control and so forth, not.
Not initially.
But still, it's good to know, and it's handy to have. Right?
Absolutely.
Cool, okay, well, there you go. That's this week's PS4 News Roundup. If you've got any questions or comments, say so under this video, and we shall speak to you guys next week.